under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Special meeting tonight. First on the agenda is public comments and/or questions on agenda items only. If you have a comment and/or a question, please approach the podium. State your name and where you live.
Michael Pelletier, Wingdale resident.
Mike, just pull that a little closer. There you go.
Michael Pelletier, Wingdale resident. Good evening, Supervisor Eno, town board members. Just a couple questions regarding the proposed community center. I will apologize now if I get a little bit passionate, just the way I am. I'd like to state first that I'm not in opposition to this plan, only parts of it. I think we need a community center, but there are a number of concerns. So this is not directed, of course, at anyone here. Just bear with me if you would. I want to start with a brief history of Boyce Park from my perspective. I've lived here for over 30 years now. I've been involved with almost every project at the parks as far as plumbing and HVAC. So I know a little bit about what goes on. First, I was part of the team that built what is now the current rec department. This building was proposed, funded, and built as a community building and as a senior center. Unfortunately, the rec department had to move from their location they were in, took over the building. So at this point, we lost our senior center. Also lost the bathrooms to the public and the snack shack, which, as many of us know that were in Little League at that time, everyone was able to serve their time for the community on the weekend games. You had to go in, serve time, make money for, the rec department. So we lost this, and that, again, that's part of your sports community you speak of. Also, the old snack shack, which is in the bathhouse, was taken over as a storage unit at that time because they didn't need the snack shack anymore, so we lost that as well. During the construction of what is now the rec maintenance building, which again I was part of, that was promoted as a community bathroom. For quite a while it was shut down. I understand it may be opened again. It's open again for the soccer games. So this is something new, but it was shut down for quite a period of time. And it was also used for storage. So over the last 30 years, we've lost both of our new facilities at a fair amount of time. So also the two remaining bathrooms, one had to be used for water treatment, which unfortunately does not function the way it should. So we lost another bathroom. Vandals have come in, destroyed the last remaining bathroom. So, it makes it quite difficult for the kids that are on the Little League field to have to travel so far. So, that's a big concern of mine. There is a couple of funded projects for some new toilets and sinks, one at each park, which is great. The problem is there's no potable water. This is major concern. I think this should be, with our engineers, should be priority number one. We can't have a public facility, public park, without potable water. Just from my own personal experience and knowledge, this has to get fixed. So I'd really like to ask the town if there's any money left from the grant to research and study this. Let's put that money in a new well. Let's prove that we've got potable water on the park property, that we can physically use it. Otherwise, having bathrooms, sinks, it doesn't make much sense. In addition, at the same time, I don't know if this may have already been done. I haven't seen it in any of the forms or anything, but for any building that I've ever worked on, and I've been in the field for 40 years, you need to have the septic system needs to be approved by the Board of Health first before you can build. Have we done that? Have we done a shallow well or a shallow hole and a deep hole test required by the Board of Health to stamp these plans for us to be able to do this? We're in wetlands up there, so I think we should look into this before we spend all the money on it. Again, safe drinking water is my biggest concern. Also from last month's meeting, I see there is a report on the work that's to be done on the pond, but I don't see what the actual physical work is, and I'd really like to know what the DEC permit is going to allow us to do on the pond. We know it's federal wetlands, so that's a serious concern. I think the town needs to be protected and stay within whatever that permit tells them they're allowed to do. The 100-foot setback, extremely important on any federal wetland. So, you know, also, was the wetland and the pond used as part of the original SWIP for the park? I don't know. You know, I can't find it anywhere, so just something we'd like to look at. Also, we keep mentioning articles about a healthy community. This building itself is not going to create that. This starts in our schools, our elementary schools. We need to get the kids, this is Dover, but, you know, you play for the Dragons. I know a lot of children that unfortunately go to other towns to play travel teams. I know we're trying to build to that, very difficult to do when you look at the surrounding towns. So the big question is, you know, I understand that this is going to be a community building, but it's a rec building. So I think we need to promote it as that, not just a community building, but as the rec building. Of course, there will be fees, I'm sure, for use of the building. We've got to determine who's going to be priority. Is that determined by the rec department? If so, okay, but, you know, everybody's going to want their fair time in the building. Farmers market, vendors, whatever the case may be. So we mentioned these programs are also going to be evenings. So that means that the park is no longer dawn to dusk. The park will be open in the evenings. Complete park, the entire park. If we're going to open the building, then the park is open.
It will be just the facility as of right now. We do not have lights on the other.
Okay, and that's, and again, that is part of the question, and that will come up, thank you. So, you know, that's part of the park. Why can't the rest of the park be open? Lights, okay, understandable, but that means that any time the building is open, all the bathrooms are available. Everyone, the whole park. So just, you know, concerns that we don't see that aren't listed, of course. And also the mention of the third space to be used for farmers market, whatever the case may be. I couldn't find the dimensions of it on the plans. So if we were to line up tables at both walls for a farmer's market, that cuts our egress to below 6 feet just from what I could scale. Can't have it. All the doors are double door exits, fire egress, double doors, 6 feet all the way through. So we have to make sure we keep that in mind. This cuts down on the egress, fire hazard. Again, it shows the parking lots. I'm assuming that this means blacktop. So who is responsible? I mean, these are a lot of questions that are going to come up, but before we can have an actual physical vote to know, you know, what's going to happen, we need to know these things. Is it Dover Rec or is it Town of Dover that's responsible for plowing the park, sanding, salting, which will have to be continuous now if this building is open, is open. Also, who staffs the building for day and night groups, activities, weekends? Who does the janitorial service? Days, nights, weekends? For events, special groups, whatever the case. And also the emergency center is a great idea. I have major concerns on that. Warming and cooling. Cooling is going to be a large electrical usage. So if this is an emergency building, this is a massive generator we're going to need. We're talking 12,000 square feet of cooling and heating. So we really need to think of the size of this generator. I don't know your classification yet, but with 12,000 square feet, minimum 1,200 people in that building, fire sprinklers and fire alarms are, to me, an absolute must. You're talking 1,200 local residents in a building at one time. This being the case, we don't have city water. We need massive storage tanks in the ground. We need fire pumps and the system with a separate generator because this is an emergency system. So these are other costs that we need to consider. I don't know if they've been figured into the plan. Second, the parking lot. The second parking lot and the tennis courts, are they figured into our budget as well? Is this part of this number that we're going after for our loan? It's not out there as far as what I can see. Also, with the evening use of the building and the park, we're definitely going to need parking lot lights, not only for safety but for security. Don't know how much of this is figured in the budget. So another issue is going to be security fencing, of course, which will be required around the entire parking lot, most of the soccer field, the construction site, possibly around the pond. This is full-size security fencing, as they have up in Dover for the 2 apartment buildings that are being built in the back. We know what kids are going to do. Kids are going to go into there. Extremely dangerous on a construction site. So this is going to shut down a good part of the park and the soccer fields for the season as soon as this project begins. So another of the issues that we need to be sure are included. So just curious as, you know, how many, where the numbers came from for the building, how many people in the professional fields were brought in for input on these budget numbers. So I know the entire project is at the roughly $9 million. So the entire building is not the $9 million, but it's a large portion of it. So for my numbers, that's close to $900 a square foot to build this building. So for the storage area, which we have several of already, roughly $600,000 for storage. Pretty sure we could buy a building in town for a lot less than that. Same as the offices. The office spaces, $575,000. Again, an awful lot of money for an office that we already have. We have a rec office already. We have an entire building for the rec department. So, big concerns. So we know we're over $500,000 a year for our mortgage. Staffing for nights, weekends, and events, annual costs on that. Custodial services, days, nights, weekends, annual cost. Rough heating costs, rough cooling costs. Electrical, snow removal, building maintenance, which unfortunately is one thing we're lacking on a lot of the buildings, is the maintenance to them. The generators, their fuel cost. Quick summary, no potable water, I don't think we can have a building. Storage within the building, definitely no building. And the rec department offices, I really think that that should stay where it is now. It's a large expense to move that into this building and lose that much space. So, just a quote from our adopted 2022 goals, our adopted comprehensive plans, goals, and I quote, "The town should focus on improving existing facilities," end quote. I would like to ask one board member, please make a motion that we table any vote to approve any loans or approve this project this evening. I don't think there's enough community knowledge. 99% of the people I spoke with today know nothing about this project. None. Not at all. So, in my conclusion, I would like the vote to be moved. If it is set for July 1st week, the first week of July, is that when the vote's due? No, next month. When is it?
We're looking at the end of July.
Okay, because that was part of my question. Originally, it said that it would be the first part of July.
90 to 100 days? What is the total?
Okay, good, good. Only because that is vacation week, as we all know. A lot of people won't be here, so. So that was it. That's my biggest concerns. I really appreciate your time, guys. Thank you.
Mike, thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
I'm just going to say I did take a lot of notes. We will answer all of those questions, as many as we can. I will answer a few right now. The office space concern that you do have, the talk and the possibility and the plan is to move our offices to the new facility and start using that community center like you discussed in the beginning, putting programs back in it, okay, utilizing the office space in the new space, all right. As for potable water, we have done improvements and a lot of work on what's down there, but this new building will have its own well and its own septic, all right. The pond, if Joe would like to speak on the pond, what we went through to get that all approved, you're more than welcome to say something, Joe, if you're ready. Yep. The rest of the questions, I'll get back to you on them.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Yep.
So we have a permit from the DEC for the nationwide permit, 1/10 of an acre, to build a small parking lot on this one side toward the entrance, which we will remove a portion of the wetland and fill it. And the rest is for dredging and removing the sediment off the basin of the pond. Basically, those are two tasks that we asked for or got permission to do. So we're going to take the material out of the pond, store it on site till it dries, and then use it elsewhere on the site. That's outside of the permit because it has nothing. The permit is only within the wetland. Even though DEC is monitoring this, it's an Army Corps nationwide permit, which is, there is no buffer. The buffer people are thinking about is it's off of 100 foot from a DEC regulated wetland. This is a federal wetland. It's a nationwide permit. It's administered through DEC through Permit the Nation. So we are held to removal of a tenth of an acre of the federal wetland, and nothing outside the wetland is controlled by this permit.
Stanley?
I would like a copy, but I'll put a FOIL in anyways. Thank you.
Along with that, we'd be improving the drainage on the south end. We're working with DOT as well. Okay? Any other questions or comments on the agenda items only? All right, moving forward. Where are you?
You go to the very beginning. You click on that.
I did, it's not coming up.
Or maybe minimize your screen that you have.
I'll stick them.
Maybe try it from the desktop.
Yep.
The other one desktop.
There we go. Resolution to authorize budget transfers, accept unanticipated revenues, and authorize budget amendments. Be it resolved that the Town Board of the Town of Dover does hereby approve the following items for consideration and adoption in the April 17th, 2024 Town Board regular special meeting consent agenda. Authorize budget transfers, unanticipated revenues, and budget amendments as prepared and submitted by the town's bookkeeper. I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Brought by Maluta, seconded by Jackson. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So carried. PowerPoint. There we go. Yep.
So the next item on the agenda is a continued discussion of a proposed new community recreation center at Thomas Rose Park. Can we go to the next slide?
Yep.
This is the order of the presentations before we go into any resolutions. So first, Julie Muncy, who's the recreation specialist, is going to do a recap about the needs and benefits of the new center, followed by a colleague from the Town of Beekman Recreation Department, Danny Plastini, who's going to share some insights from her role with the Recreation Department in Beekman. Thank you, Julie.
Okay, I'm Julie Muncy for Recreation, Dover Recreation. The introduction of a new municipal recreation center in our community offers a multiple benefits that cater to the diverse needs of the residents. In addition to providing a space for recreation activities, the center will also serve as an emergency shelter in times of crisis, offer a safe haven for summer camp during extreme weather conditions. Right now, we're 100% outside. A new municipal recreation center would offer numerous benefits to the community, providing a valuable space for residents for all ages, engage in physical activities, socialize, and improve their overall well-being. As a recreation department, we rely 100% on the schools for our indoor programs. This makes it difficult for our organizations to rely on the same space as our program needs, and if the school has activities and programs on their own, we have to delay or cancel our programs. Having our own space will eliminate that problem and provide better services for our community. The center will be a hub of activity for before and after care programs during school breaks and holidays. The program activities tailored to engage children and teenagers of all ages. Families can rest assured that the children will be entertained, stimulated, and supervised during school breaks. From sports leagues and arts and crafts workshops to education programming and special events, the Recreation Center will become a vital source for families looking to keep their children engaged and active during the free time. Having a recreation center will increase physical activity with a variety of programs for youth, seniors alike. We could now incorporate programs during the winter months, as well as a place for seniors to stop by, meet with friends, and play cards and games during the week, not just on program days. We will be able to provide year-round community events, and we would not have to worry about inclement weather during our Halloween or Easter events. We will now have the opportunity to move indoors. Overall, the Recreation Center will become a vital resource for families looking to keep their children engaged and active throughout the year. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Danny, for coming tonight.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for having me. Good evening, everyone. My name is Danny Plastini. I'm the Recreation Director at the Town of Beekman. Thank you for inviting me. I'm here to share a brief message on the importance of having a recreation center in our community. Our recreation center is located in our main park, and we use this facility for our senior center, exercise classes for both seniors and adults, as well as various town events during the year. Just this past March, our annual egg hunt turned out to be a very cold and wet, rainy day in March. We were able to move inside the community center, and having an indoor facility helped our children and family enjoy a much-loved spring activity. Albeit inside, we still had a great day. Our community center is also used in cases of emergencies and natural disasters as a warming and cooling center, as well as an essential town support during the COVID pandemic as a staging area for test and vaccine distribution. Its central location and availability on a daily basis is a constant that town residents can always depend on. We also rent the recreation center for residents to host birthday parties and family celebrations, which provides a cost-saving benefit to families and a source of income to the town. Families with children and those who live on fixed, modest income levels, like seniors and retirees, depend on the communities to provide safe and accessible programs and facilities to engage in recreation and physical activity, to meet fellow residents, and to experience connections and a sense of belonging that are building blocks of community pride and spirit. For today's children and teens, use and dependence on social media and electronic devices have been associated with increased depression, anxiety, and feelings of isolation. And regrettably, not every neighborhood has safe streets, grass lawns, and neighbors who allow children to play or understand that kids are not mini adults and that kids like to be kids. A recreation center provides the physical and social-emotional spaces for kids to enjoy being kids, to be safe, supervised, and supported, and a place that parents can reasonably afford. Older active adults who live in our community because they want to stay independent and live where costs of living are more affordable utilize town recreation programs to develop new friendships, for group trips to performances, programs, and special events, and to enjoy time out of their homes with people in their own generation. Simply put, town recreation is no longer a community amenity. It is an essential community service, like fire protection and emergency services, where close-knit and caring residents enjoy healthy independence with each other and contribute to the well-being of the entire community. I commend all of you at the Town of Dover for your vision and the work you have already done improving your current park facilities and your plan to construct a new community recreation center to expand and create new recreation programs, build indoor space for summer day campers, and to provide an updated space for your senior meetings. Like we do in Beekman, I know you deeply care about your residents, and this project is an investment in Dover's future and the well-being of children and future grandchildren. Thank you for your time. Good luck.
Thank you.
Danny. Great. All right, so next on the agenda is a brief review of some of of 5 of the top 15 reasons. Could you turn to the next slide, please? And the next one. All right, excellent. So we have a working group that's been meeting perhaps almost a year or two in preparation for what we are discussing tonight and have discussed in the past month and will discuss in the future. And we've come up with many reasons why we think that Dover needs a community recreation center. community in terms of that there'll be events available for the entire community, from toddlers all the way to active adults to senior citizens. During the week, on weekends, ways to build our community, to help our young people have activities, to help our seniors be able to socialize and make new friendships. That is the community part. And of course, the recreation part is in lots of ways to reduce our dependence upon the school district for facilities that in times past served our needs, but as times going forward is harder and harder for us to work around, especially since the pandemic. So I'll go over just a couple of these reasons, just the top 5 coming from 15, and at future meetings I'll also talk more about some of the reasons. So as you can see, reason 15, the community has been asking for a recreation center since 2017, and likely well before that. Over and over again, improving quality of life in Dover on questions that are, whether they're in-person interviews, things that we did for the comprehensive plan. Residents say a community recreation center or a sports facility is an important priority for them. So we are doing this in response to residents' requests. Boyce Park facilities originally were built about 2000, the open-air pavilion and the recreation office, and they're in need of update. Regardless of whether we build a community center or not, those areas meet our needs now, but we do need to be sure to take care of them as well. Municipalities are responsible for providing safe facilities. And if accidents happen due to lack of responsibility, the town is exposed to litigation, to settlements, and to corrective actions. Updating and maintaining our facilities is vitally important, just like adding new facilities. In the event that summer day camp would have to close for any reason, because it has become such an integral part of our community, childcare for 100 children and 30 camp counselors, which are residents as well, would dramatically be disrupted, and that would affect the well-being of our families. Many families depend on our summer camp, and as you heard, our facilities are only open-air facilities. Children have no shelter in the humid heat of the summer, as well as the rain and thunderstorms. They're under a pavilion, but they're not indoors. People often say Dover lacks some of the facilities and that we should be able to try to recruit economic development and big box retailers and why we can't seem to increase business. One of the potential reasons of that is due to our lack of population. And our lack of population can be rooted in some way because we don't have facilities to offer. So when neighboring facilities have community recreation centers or places that people find attractive to come and socialize and take part in, they may choose to go to other areas. And then as a result, it deters interest in people coming to Dover, which in turn keeps our population from growing, and then in turn keeps our economic development from happening. And for this kind of last part of tonight, town boards can't make economic development happen. It's residents that make economic development and a community happen. So residents need to be supportive to the town board in helping achieve important goals, even generational goals, for example, a community recreation center. This is not necessarily a project that is simple. Many administrations have not decided to do this because it is a big project. But I commend this board for the willingness to even consider moving forward. Tonight we're in the process of proposing to move ahead. Nothing can happen tonight. Tonight's role would be to adopt a resolution where we would set a special election where the residents will vote in favor. All our plans are preliminary. What you look at tonight are only conceptual plans. We can't go any further. We cannot create a septic plan. We cannot create a water plan. All we can do at this point right now is move forward with the conceptual idea and a budget that was based on an architect and a general contractor taking our ideas and coming up with a estimated cost. So this is the beginning of a much, much longer process, and we would welcome to have residents involved at the table with us going forward. But it needs to start somewhere, and if the town board is willing, it can start tonight. Okay, can we turn to the next slide? All right. You know what, before we go to that, I wanted to invite Mr. Goodfield, Attorney Bond Counsel Douglas Goodfield, to come forward and perhaps explain a little bit about the resolutions we're going to consider tonight if we get to that point.
Okay, very good. Thank you for inviting me. I am a bond counsel. That is, I'm a lawyer that's involved with authorizing the financing for a capital project such as yours. I don't know any other law. If I wanted to sell my house down the road on Route 22 where I live by Brewster, I'd have to hire a lawyer. If I wanted to divorce my wife, well, she'd kill me, so I wouldn't need to go get a lawyer anyway. But this I know. So here's what I can tell you about what's on the agenda. So for the town board to consider building a community recreation center and financing it under the local finance law of the state, they have to adopt a bond resolution, right? What does a bond resolution do? Here's what it's going to cost. It notes what SECR is, because SECR has to be done before you even get to this step, or at least before the vote, you have to have said what SECR is. And the bond resolution says, here's the project, and we authorize so much in bonds to pay for the project. You could also, if you had a reserve fund, for a different project, you can put reserve fund money, you can put cash in. But any project like this, of this size these days, people generally do bond financing for. So what the bond resolution does is it authorizes the maximum cost of the project, it authorizes the plan of financing to bond for it, and it delegates authority to the supervisor to proceed with the sale and issuance of the bonds at the appropriate time when the money is needed. And that bond resolution for any project which has a useful life of more than 5 years is subject to permissive referendum. So if this project is just 5 years, well, it used to be that some highway equipment cost not a lot, and it would have a 5-year useful life, and you pay it off in 5 years. Now you go out and buy a tractor, and it's $500,000. So, it's more than 5 years now. But anyway, if it's limited to 5 years, the bond resolution would be effective immediately. If the board wanted to say, we're going to do this project, we're going to pay it off in 5 years, it's effective immediately, sorry folks, we're done, you would be done. You wouldn't be in office much longer in that case, paying off $8 million, $9 million in 5 years, because you'd have to raise the taxes. That's what the bonds are all about. They pledge their faith in credit. You, the people of this town, you pledge your faith and credit to pay for the bonds, right? That's how it happens. It gets raised in the levy over time. So if it's more than 5 years, it's subject to permissive referendum. The board could, if it wished, make this subject to permissive referendum and say, okay, folks, if you don't want us to do this, bring us in a petition subject to the petition rules. My understanding is, correct me if I'm wrong, but the way I drafted this, the way I understand it, the board has decided they want to go out to a mandatory referendum and have the people decide yes or no, do you want this and do you want to be taxed for this? Okay?
Correct.
To me, that's democracy in action. Would that the people above us in the levels of government could behave like that, right? I mean, everybody
comment.
gets together and they decide and they say, it's up to the voters, you decide yes or no, do you want the project? So this bond resolution is to be adopted subject to mandatory referendum on the board's own motion at their request. So the first resolution is to adopt a bond resolution subject to a mandatory referendum. It has no validity until the referendum happens, and if the people say yes, then it becomes valid. The second resolution is to call the vote. There are rules about the time frame of when do you have to call a vote, when does it have to happen. That's all built into the second resolution. What happens after that? All the qualified voters in this town can decide yes or no, do we want this or not. If the voters say yes, then the bond resolution is effective immediately, and a estoppel notice is published in the newspaper, and people are stopped from challenging the validity of what has happened unless the board violated the Constitution in the process, which is very, very hard to do. And as I'm a lawyer doing this for 40 years, nobody's ever done that. Otherwise, I wouldn't be standing here. So, the estoppel protects the borrowing, and what happens after that? Well, after that, now you have a valid source of funds for this project. Now you go out and you get the architect to give you the detailed plans. Now you do all the other pieces that without the voter approval, you're not even going to recoup the money for, if you see what I mean. If you do various other things and you don't have the bond resolution in place, you're not going to get the money back. So now, after the vote, if it's successful, then the more detailed planning is done. And if the town needs to borrow money on an incremental basis over time on short-term notes until going into long-term bonding, that is the authority that is provided in the bond resolution and has been delegated to the supervisor, who is the chief fiscal officer. I think that's the whole thing in a nutshell. I would love to tell you where rates are and where they're going, but if I had that knowledge, I would be up on the screen in a Zoom from the Bahamas saying, "Hi, folks," because I don't know what's going to happen with interest rates. All I know is that they've been going up. Maybe they'll go, I don't know. I know that it's probably a good time to do this if you're going to do it, because we don't know what's going to happen next. And that's it. Any questions?
Just one quick one, and either you can answer or council can answer. Qualified voter, that is a registered voter, nothing that says just be 18 or older, correct?
No, qualified voter. It's my view.
That's what the statute says.
Yeah.
Could I ask for it?
Hmm?
Does that include all people who own property, not just registered in the town? Everybody that
No,
pays
it
taxes?
does not.
Registered voters in the town.
Registered voters only may vote. No corporations, it used to be owners of taxable real property could vote in this kind, that changed.
Okay, because that's huge, that's a big question.
Yes. You have to be registered to vote in this town. You can't be someone that lives in Vermont and comes down here to visit New York City 3 times a year, or whatever.
That question's been asked to me, that's why I asked you to answer it.
Yeah, no, that's the answer.
Thank you.
No corporations vote, no partnerships vote. People,
Yep,
that's it.
thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Goodfield. Excellent. All right, so now we're ready to move into the seeker review. Joe, would you be willing to come forward and help the board review the EAF Part 2?
Good evening. So as part of the seeker process, we did a part 1, which the board has reviewed. Part of that process was going out and looking
Did you
at the
still want
site.
this one? You want this, right?
Yeah,
We
looking
can
at the
start with that,
site.
sure.
So Ecological Systems and myself went out and reviewed the site. Jim Bates identified a federal wetland, not a state wetland, north of the site and flagged it. It was surveyed and located, and we're nowhere near it, as can be seen on the map. The building itself will be pretty much where the parking lot is, so very little, if any, disturbance to the woods will occur. We're going to be in the open area. The parking lot is pretty much where the parking lot is now, just will be pushed around and made a little bit newer, but it's right where it is now. To service the building will be a subsurface sewage disposal system, which we show there. We know it's a gravel soil there. And for stormwater treatment, we have a small stormwater treatment pond right to the north side to do our diligence for stormwater, water quality, and runoff reduction. We also show a well. We had a well drilled a couple of years ago, which was pretty good quantity. It's for the existing building. So we have no doubt that the well will provide us the minimum which we need, which would be 5 gallons a minute. So we've used all that information as well as looking at online for the due diligence that we do for filling out the Part 1, which we provided to the board, which you reviewed. And based on reviewing of the Part 1 and the information presented in the report from the ecological systems, which included wetlands and habitat, as well as the form that I filled out. We're going to go through 11 questions for you as a board to make a determination of environmental significance. The two choices will be no or small and moderate, which would be one choice, or moderate to large. And the board will make those decisions, and we'll record them.
Before that, could we just look at the next few slides and you can just
Sure,
refer to
absolutely.
them? So,
All right. What's wrong? I lost it on mine.
There you go.
it's a PowerPoint. It's over to the right-hand side if you, where the P is there, right there. There are a few more slides that Joe can kind of provide some of the information that our consultants have actually done, so.
So this is an elevation of the building. It shows what
Sure.
it will look like.
You're just down a little bit further.
Oh,
Next
let's
one, please.
Next one.
Ne-
Right.
Next one, please.
Here
Next one, please. All right.
So that's the existing parking lot. That's where the parking lot will stay, as well as the building will be going toward the right side of this screen right there.
Great. Next slide.
So that wetland which you see is the green, dark and light green is the federal wetland, which was pretty close to where it was. The building will be placed over in here, well away from it.
Next slide, please.
So the habitat report basically shows that we know we have turtles in Dover, and we know we have the Indiana bat. The turtles stay within the wetlands. We're going to be nowhere near it, so we're not impacting any of their habitat. And as far as the Indiana bat, the rules on that is you don't cut trees during the winter months. So, but we're not cutting any trees. So we have no impact on the trees, nor the bats, nor the bog turtles by staying away from it. The best mitigation you can have is by not building where they are, and that's what we're doing.
Great.
This is just a soils map that describes the type of soil in there, which is a Copac gravelly silt loam, which we know out there from excavating and working on the park for the last 15 years. We know there's gravel out there. So the soils map is actually accurate.
And I think that might be it, but if you could just check to see. All right. So those were some of the studies that were done in preparation for the EAF, the Environmental Assessment Form, Part 2.
Exactly.
So now Joe will go through those questions as part of due diligence.
So, number one, will the proposed action create a material conflict with the adopted land use plan or zoning regulations? In other words, is it allowed by zoning? Is it allowed in your master plan? I would recommend the answer is no, not just not smaller tomorrow, but a no, but that's for the board to decide. My recommendation is a no.
Okay.
Board's okay with that?
Yep.
Will the proposed action result in a change in the use of the intensity of the land? Other than going inside, this is a park. We've been using it for ball fields. We've been using it for this facility. The only change is that we're going to have it during rain days. We'll be able to provide it. So it may not be a no increase, but it'll certainly be small because we're going to be adding some use during bad weathers when the park is not usable. But to me, that's a small impact.
Okay.
Okay.
Yep, I agree.
Will the proposed action impair the character or quality of the existing community? I don't believe it will impair the community at all. It will improve Dover, and that's the intent of doing it. So my answer would be recommended would be no for that.
Okay, I agree.
Will the proposed action have an impact on environmental characteristics that cause the establishment of critical environmental area? As will it have any impact on basically the wetland or any CEA that's downstream? We're working in the area that's already been disturbed. The area is already a parking lot and a ball field. The intent for a building being there will be no different than a parking lot that's impervious already and the ball field nearby. So my recommendation is that's a no.
Okay.
5, will the proposed action result in adverse change in the use and level of traffic or affect infrastructure for mass transit, biking, or walkway? People, the residents of Dover go to the park already. However, since this will be a facility that's closed, so it'll be able to be used during rain or winter months, it's not a no answer, but certainly a small answer, because you'll be having the traffic that on there's no days, there should be some traffic, but it won't be any higher than the intensity that you have now, because the park is currently used to its full. This is just adding more flexibility, so I would recommend this as a small.
Okay.
Will the proposed action cause an increase in the use of energy, and it fails to incorporate reasonable available energy conservation or renewable energy opportunities? Well, again, there's going to be some small increase because of the electric and the lighting, but it's not going to be that much more. The numbers we've seen in there from the EAF are small, so I would recommend that's as well as a small. It's certainly not, the alternative would be, do you need to bring in a larger electric lines from the Con Ed lines or anything, or does the electric power plant need to be upgraded? It's not intended for this type of use. So 7, will the proposed action impact the existing public-private water supplies or wastewater? No, because there are no public waters or sewer on the site. We're going to be using a subsurface sewage disposal system for the site and drill a new well. So that would be a no.
Okay.
8, will the proposed action impair the characteristic and quality of important historic, archaeological, or aesthetic resources? Well, there are historic resources nearby, but not in the area where we are constructing. We're constructing where there's a parking lot, and that parking lot's already been disturbed. There's no historical significance within that footprint of where we're working. Regardless, even though there are some down and in the nearby, as Dover has many historic resources. So I would classify that as a no, but certainly no to small. If there was, some would say just building here because you're within a mile of a historic district, it could have some small. I would say no, but certainly no or small.
Okay, I agree.
9, will the proposed action result in an adverse change to natural resources, wetlands, water bodies, flora, fauna? Again, as we described earlier, we're not working anywhere near the wetland. We're staying the 100 foot away, even though we're not a DEC wetland. We're still staying with away as much as possible, so we're not affecting the bog turtles or the flora or fauna. So that's a no in my recommendation.
Okay, I agree.
Will the proposed action result in an increase in the potential for erosion, flooding, or drainage? Whenever you build impervious, you do have a small increase. We're building a building where the parking lot is, so the increase will be insignificant if some. However, the mitigation is we're providing a small bioretention in the back to take the stormwater off the building and clean it up before draining it into the ground and off-site. So I don't think it would be a no, but it's certainly a small.
I agree.
The last question, will the proposed action create a hazard to environmental resources or human health? This is just a building that's going to be built per building code. We're going to follow all the rules and regulations required by New York State, so that would be a no. And with those 11, you've answered all no or small impact. Therefore, you've successfully completed the seeker process, and I turn it over to Tom and the council.
So the town board, back in March, passed a resolution declaring its intent to be the lead agency in this project, and it was circulated pursuant to the seeker regulations. There's a 30-day waiting period. That 30 days has elapsed. My understanding, there's been no objection from any interested involved agency, challenging the board's application to be lead agency on this
Nothing.
project. So as such, under seeker, the town board, and in my legal opinion, rightfully so, is lead agency now on this project. I've prepared a resolution for the board to consider tonight where you're declared lead agency, and that based on the full EAF and the Part 1 and Part 2 full, that this be determined to be an unlisted action under SECRA, and that a negative declaration be issued by the town board. That would complete the SECRA process, and then the board could go on to the bond resolutions.
Okay.
All right. As this project really is just a construction of a building, due to the size of the building, being over a certain potential square footage, that's what makes it an unlisted action rather than potentially a type 2 action, which would really require no further secret investigation.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you. Joe, anything else?
Should they take a vote on that seeker?
We are going to do a
Oh, you're going to do it
resolution.
later, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I did a formal resolution.
Oh, thank you.
Katie?
So, before we move on, as you can see, their conceptual design is a modest building. We're not anticipating anything that is beyond what the town needs. A basketball court, office space for the recreation department to be able to man the building, extra meeting space that we hope will be for seniors, for teens, for after-school programs, for small group meetings, an atrium area called the third space, which is a way for people to have informal conversations versus walking into a building and immediately going in an office. Third space is considered community building space. So of course it would be designed where egress would be in and out with, areas for walking. Maybe the conceptual design is a little bit narrower, but in its final print, it would always meet what code would be. So with the idea that this is a building that serves the needs that we have in terms of leaving the dependency on the school, providing a building on an already park facility space, and that we are at the beginning of a process that doesn't commit us to exactly what is before you. It's going to be developed. I'd ask your opinion if you still would want to table the discussion, or if you feel comfortable at this point, because things are very preliminary and that the public will ultimately have the say before we go any further. If you feel that, and it's a negative declaration as well, which means it's not a significant impact on the environment. If you, as town board members, feel comfortable with moving ahead on seeker, on the bond resolution, and on setting the date of the special election.
I'll go ahead and speak on that. I think, truthfully, Mike, I think some of your questions were answered, or maybe open another door for further conversation, okay? The true answer is a lot of this is, like Katie said, is preliminary. This is what we had to do to get it to this point, and to take it further tonight with the resolutions, and whether we approve them or not. If we approve them, it keeps the process going, in simple terms. If I'm wrong, please correct me with that, okay? So this keeps nothing is set in stone after we read and approve or not approve. Nothing set in stone whatsoever. This takes us further down the path of trying to bring what, since 17 and before that, our residents have come to us and said, this is what we'd like. If you look at the surveys or all the input that people have given to us over the years at the Dover Days, or here at meetings, or just talking to them at open sessions, or just open conversations, what comes up, Mike, and not just you, anybody, store, rec center, teen center, right? And it always comes down to population and money, okay? But we have the population. I feel we have the backing. I feel we have the involvement of our residents, our kids to our seniors, to further go down this path We've been working on it. The committee has been doing their due diligence to get the information that we need for this evening and to take it further. We will have as many meetings as we feel we need, and then some if they are requested and/or needed. That is our promise, because it's you, the people, the residents of Dover, that are going to bring it to us and say yes or no, whether it's in the end of July, early August, whatever the time is set. We have a time frame that we can't be under. It's that or more, okay? So I said it publicly, and I'll say it again. I back this process 100%, okay? I speak for myself. I don't speak for my 4 other members. 3 of them are here tonight, 1 absent, okay? We'll read the resolution, and we'll go from there, and either keep it moving, or we table it and bring you back more information for next time, okay? You understand? All right. There's 1,000 questions. We still have our own questions, but this is the process that we need to take by bringing in bond counsel, bringing in our representative for the bonding, the seeker process, right? The EAF, all right? Joe doing the input and the due diligence that he has to do for us as our engineer. All right, the studies, the DECs, the notifications, the questions to get answered in order to get to this point. So that's where we're at tonight. Half of that stuff you brought up tonight is still on our table to be answered, figured out, or, like Katie said, priced when we know we're heading down the path to, ultimately, the vote. Yes or no? Okay? Any questions? I didn't mean to focus on you, Mike, you know that.
That's okay, I'm here for a lot of people too.
No, I understand. I like that. I wish more were here.
I know,
Okay.
there was supposed to be more back there, but.
That's all right. That's all right.
And we're here for the people too. You know, I have my own questions about, like you said, and you brought it up, and he brought it up, a great point, that we need to know about generation and emergency center and water and all that other stuff, but we can't go down that trail. We'll lose money as a town, you know, getting, you know, prices and quotes, and this, you know, time is money, so we have to, there's a process that we have to do, and then the people will speak, and, you know, we're, you know, this is what we gotta do.
Counsel. Heather, go ahead.
I just had a question. Is this going to be open to all of the public, even, or is it going to cost a family to go and use the rec center? Is it open to families that can't afford to pay a rec fee, or is it just for rec activities only?
Well, the public is going to own it. It's rec activities, yes, and then future talks and plans will be whatever we can make it be.
Right.
Whatever our people need is always on our table to consider and/or put in place or not put in place, depending whether we can make it happen, not make it happen. Julie, if you have anything to add to that?
Right now, the programs that we offer are to everybody. The rec center will all figure out how we would work that. But the rec center is planned to be open from, 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. There'll be open gym, like we have a free open gym now up at the high school, but we can do all that stuff in the building, and that'll be open gym areas, whether it's for kids, whether it's for seniors, whether it's for our middle age. We'll have things for that. We have free programs and we have programs that you pay for, because we also pay the people to do the programs. So, we'll have both.
I only ask because, like,
And
during
we
the
also,
summer.
we do have scholarships. We have program scholarships as well as day camp scholarships. We have that throughout the year, no matter what program we do. So that's something we always offer, even now. So example, for Dover Day, when we collect the money for our rides, all that, majority of that money, more than half goes to that scholarship. So that's how we replenish the scholarship program, and every year that takes care of any programs that any kids need.
And the rec center has helped my family in the past too. I've raised 3 children that have done all sports activities and whatnot. The reason why I ask is because, like, during summer camp, during the summer, between the hours of this time and this time, you use that for summer camp. We've arrived at the park before, which is publicly owned, and got told we could not use the facilities at that time because they had that going at that moment. So
At that time, we did have that policy, we don't have it now. Now you're able to go, because at the time, whether it was COVID or before COVID, there was just too many kids to be on that playground at once, safety-wise. But now we have a security guard who does day camp for us. So now if he sees something or somebody go to him, or our campers have gone to him and said, hey, there's this person, and he will go and do that. We didn't have a security guard before at day camp. So now we have that to monitor the people at the playground much better.
which is understandable. I didn't know, so I
Yeah.
was
Mhm.
wondering.
And, always call the recreation office if you have questions. Anybody, because, if we can't give you the answer, we will give you the answer.
Okay,
I'd rather have you call and I can explain it to you.
thank you, Julie. All right? Okay. Resolutions.
So Rich, change the date. It should be the 13th.
Oh, okay, I wasn't sure for,
Yeah. I used the regular meeting date. It was the special meeting where we
right,
did the
exactly.
intent to declare.
All right, sure.
All right, where are you?
So it,
The second whereas should be March 13th.
March 13th instead of 2/7?
Mhm.
Okay. Okay. Resolution declaring town board lead agency and determination of significance in accordance with the State Environmental Quality Review Act, seeker for the Town Dover Boys Park Recreation Center project. Whereas the Town Board of the Town of Dover desires to construct a Town of Dover Recreation Center building located at 6420 Route 55, Dover Plains, New York, at Boyce Park. And whereas on March 13th, 2024, the Town Board of the Town of Dover authorized its intent to declare lead agency in connection with the State of New York Environmental Review Act, SECRA. And whereas the required notice was transmitted to all involved agencies of the Town Board's desire to act as lead agency with respect to the environmental review of the project and following expiration of the applicable notice period. No agency has objected to the designation of the Town Board of the Town of Dover as lead agency with respect to the environmental review of the proposed Town Recreation Center construction project. And whereas, upon review of the documentation and consultation with the town engineer and town council, the Town Board has determined the construction of the Town Recreation Center to be enlisted action under SECRA. And whereas the Town Board has carefully reviewed the full environmental assessment form, the FEAF, and have completed the town engineer consultant, Berger Engineering, P.E., and whereas the Town Board has carefully reviewed and completed a full environmental assessment form, Part 2, identifying any potential impacts in connection with the Town of Dover Recreation Center construction project at Boyce Park. Now therefore be it resolved that the Town Board of the Town of Dover determines as follows. 1, the Town Board of the Town of Dover shall act as lead agency for environmental review pursuant to SECR in connection with the Town of Dover Recreation Center project. 2, the Town Board determines that the project constitutes an enlisted action under SECR as the term is defined in 6 NYCRR 617.2 AI of the SECR regulations. Based on a thorough and comprehensive review, based on a thorough and comprehensive review of the Town Board of the FEAF Part 1 and FEAF Part 2, the Town Board of the Town of Dover hereby determines and finds that the project of the construction of Town Recreation Center located at 6420 Route 55 at Boyce Park in the Town of Dover will not result in a potential significant adverse environmental impact requiring the preparation of an environmental impact statement. 4, thus, the Town Board of the Town of Dover, having conducted an uncoordinated review of the proposed construction of the Town of Dover Recreation Center at Boyce Park pursuant to 6 NYCRR 617.611 of the SECRA regulations, issues a negative declarations for the project pursuant to 6 NYCRR 617.7. 5, the Town Board has considered the project pursuant to the parameters and criteria set forth in SECR, including but not limited to those parameters set forth in 6 NYCRR 617.1 and 617.3. 6, the Town Board has considered the significance of the potential adverse environmental impacts of the project by carefully reviewing and examining the FEAF Part 1 and completing an analysis of FEAF Part 2, together with examining the available supporting information and documents concerning the project, including any potential impacts to air, groundwater, surface water, wetlands, land, historic, and agricultural, and other recognized and/or protected resources, threatened or endangered species, community character, potential cumulative impacts, if any, and other potential impacts as required by the applicable SECRA regulations. Now therefore be it further resolved that the copy of this resolution and the completed Part 1 of the FEAF, as well as the Part 2 of the FEAF, shall be placed on file in the office of the Town of Dover Town Clerk, where the same shall be available for public inspection during business hours. And be it further resolved that the Town Board of the Town of Dover and/or any person whom it may designate or has designated for such purpose is authorized to file this negative declaration in accordance with applicable provisions of law, and this resolution shall constitute a notice of negative declaration. The requirements of SECRA has therefore been satisfied, and this resolution shall take effect immediately. I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Brought by Maluta, seconded by Jackson. Any discussion? Hearing no discussion, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? So carried, one absent. Come on. It's not moving. Resolution authorizing the construction of a new recreation center at Boyce Park in and for the town of Dover, Dutchess County, New York, at a maximum estimated cost of $9,500,000, and authorizing the issuance of $9,500,000 bonds of said town to pay the cost thereof. Whereas all conditions precedent to the financing of the capital project hereinafter described, including compliance with the provisions of the State Environmental Quality Review Act, have been performed, and whereas the capital project hereinafter described has been determined to be an unlisted action pursuant to the regulations of the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation, promulgated pursuant to the State Environmental Quality Review Act, the implementation of which, as proposed, it has been determined will not result in a significant environmental effect. And whereas it is now desired to provide the authorization and financing of said purpose, now therefore be it resolved by the Town Board of the Town of Dover, Dutchess County, New York, as follows. Section 1, the construction of new recreation center at Boyce Park, 6420 Route 55 in Wingdale, New York, in and for the Town of Dover, Dutchess County, New York, including site improvements, original furnishings, equipment, machinery, apparatus, and incidental improvements and expenses in connection therewith, if hereby authorized at a maximum estimated cost of $9,500,000. Section 2, the plan for the financing of such maximum estimated cost is by the issuance of not to exceed $9,500,000 bonds is of said town, hereby authorized to be issued thereof, therefore pursuant to the provisions of the local finance law. Section 3, it is hereby determined that the period of probable usefulness of the aforesaid specific object or purpose is 30 years pursuant to subdivision 11A1 of paragraph A of section 11.00 of the local finance law. It is hereby further determined that the maximum maturity of the bonds herein authorized will exceed 5 years. Section 4, the faith and credit of said town of Dover, Dutchess County, New York, are hereby irrevocably pledged in the payment of principal and of interest on such bonds as the same respectively become due and payable. An annual appropriation shall be made in each year sufficient to pay the principal off and interest in such bonds becoming due and payable in such year. There shall annually be levied on all of the taxable real property in said town a tax sufficient to pay the principal of an interest on such bonds as the same become due and payable. Section 5, subject to the provisions of the local finance law, the power to authorize the issuance of and to sell bond anticipation notes in anticipation of the issuance and sale of the bonds herein authorized, including renewals of such notes, is hereby delegated to the supervisor of said town, the chief fiscal officer. Such notes shall be of such terms, form, and contents, and shall be sold in such manner as may be prescribed by said supervisor, consistent with the provisions of the local finance law. Section 6, All other matters except as provided herein relating to the bonds herein authorized, including the date, denominations, maturities, and interest payment dates, within the limitations prescribed herein and the manner of execution of the same, including the consolidation with other issues, and also the ability to issue bonds with substantially level or declining annual debt service, shall be determined by the supervisor, the chief fiscal officer of such town. Such bond shall contain substantially the recital and validity clause provided for in Section 52 of the local finance law, and shall otherwise be in such form and contain such recitals in addition to those required by Section 51.00 of the local finance law, as the supervisor shall determine consistent with the provisions of the local finance law. Section 7, the validity of such bonds and bond anticipation notes may be contested only if, 1, such obligations are authorized for an object or purpose for which the said town is now authorized to expend money, or 2, the provisions of law which should be complied with at the date of publication of this resolution and not substantially complied with, and an action, suit, or proceeding contesting such validity and commenced within 20 days after the date of such publication, or 3, such obligations are authorized in violation of the provisions of the Constitution. Section 8, the resolution shall constitute a statement of official intent for purposes of Treasury regulations, Section 1.150-2. Other than as specified in the resolution, no monies are or are reasonably expected to be reserved, allocated on a long-term basis, or otherwise set aside with respect to the permanent funding of the class of objects or purposes described herein. Section 9, upon the resolution taking effect, the same shall be published in full in the official newspapers of said Dover, of said town of such purpose, together with a notice of the town clerk as substantially in the form provided in Section 81.00 of the local finance law. Section 10, this resolution is adopted subject to permissive referendum, and it is hereby determined that the town board, on its own motion, in accordance with the provisions of Section 94 of the town law, hereby directs that this resolution shall be submitted for their approval of the qualified voters. Section 11, further details concerning said special town election shall be provided in a further resolution or resolutions of this town. I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Brought by Jackson, seconded by Maluda. Discussion.
Can I explain a little bit about how we came up with the amount that we proposed?
Yep.
So, as you know, we started this process a year ago, and on Dover Day, we did present a conceptual plan of a much bigger project. And when we were going a little bit further and realized the cost was going to be overwhelming, based on what our wish list was, we scaled it back. So in December and January, we condensed it to this particular iteration that we have. Our architect worked with a general contractor that he has established a relationship with to assist us in proposing an estimated cost. So for what the conceptual design was at the time, that in January, he proposed an estimated cost of $7.7 million, but he told us that soft costs were not included in that, and that it is of customary procedure to keep 15% as an overage amount in a construction project. So we determined a cost of 15% additional upon the $7.7 million, and that came to $8.75 million. Last month, we met as a team again and talked about ways to make the project be more energy efficient, and that the building could be able to save cost savings of any type. And in consultation not only with our committee, but with our building inspector and with some local vendors, we decided that we should add the cost of a metal roof instead of a shingle roof. So that would be more wearing for the maintenance of the building. A generator to power a 12,000 square foot building. Radiant heat so that it would reduce the cost of the heating, and also solar panels. So the 8.75 million, we reached out to the community vendors to ask more about what those costs would be, and that's what resulted in the 9.5 estimate that we have. We asked our bond advisor, municipal bond advisor, Beth Ferguson, who was here at our last meeting, to give us a monthly cost for a taxpayer based on $100,000 of assessed value. Just a ballpark, because we don't really know the cost of the building exactly at this point. And it came down to $12.75 a month for $100,000 of assessed value. So right now, based on that particular number, which could change, it can't go higher if you so agree to it tonight. It would have to be within that budget. But the average taxpayer with a $100,000 assessed value would have a $12.75 a month commitment to this project. Any questions?
Anything else?
Should do
Yeah.
a roll call vote on that?
I'm going to ask for the call. Yep. Seeing no further discussion, Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Councilman Holmes? Councilwoman Jackson?
Aye.
Councilman Maluta?
Aye.
Supervisor Yeno?
Aye.
4 aye, 1 absent.
Thank you very much. Last resolution. Resolution providing for the holding of a special town election on the town of Dover, Dutchess County, New York, for the purpose of submitting a proposition on the question of a bond resolution dated and duly adopted on April 17th, 2024. Whereas the town board of the town of Dover, Dutchess County, New York, has a meeting duly called, held, and conducted on April 17th, 2024, adopted a bond resolution authorizing the issuance of $9.5 million in bonds for the town of Dover, Dutchess County, New York, to pay costs of the construction of the new recreation center at Boyce Park in and for said town, including site improvements, original furnishings, equipment, machinery, apparatus, appurtenances, and incidental improvements and expenses in connection therewith, which does not take effect until a proposition of the approval thereof has been approved at a special election by the qualified electors of the said town. And whereas this town board now desires to call such a special election of said town for the submission of such proposition, now therefore be it resolved by the town board of the town of Dover, Dutchess County, New York, as follows. Section 1. A special election of the qualified electors of the town of Dover, Dutchess County, New York, shall be held on 27th day of July, 2024, in said town for the purpose of voting upon a proposition with respect to the bond resolution referred to in the preambles hereof. Voting shall be by voting machine, and the polls at such special election shall be kept open between the hours of 10 o'clock a.m. to 4 o'clock p.m., prevailing time. The polling place for said election shall be the town hall. Section 2, the town clerk is hereby authorized and directed to give notice of such special election by publication in a newspaper published in the town of, if there be any, or if there be none, in a newspaper published in the county and having general circulation in the town at least 10 days prior to the date of such special election. In addition, the town clerk shall post or cause to be posted a copy of such notice on the signboard maintained pursuant to subdivision 6 of the section 30 of the town law at least 10 days prior to such election. In addition, said notice shall be published on the town official website. Said notice shall be substantially the form attached hereto as Exhibit A and hereby incorporated herein. Section 3, this resolution shall take effect immediately. I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Brought by Maluta, seconded by Jackson. Any discussion?
The 27th is a Saturday.
That's
Yep.
correct. Can I just mention that holding the special election must take place between 90 and 105 days after your adoption of the previous resolution. So A Saturday was chosen so that it wouldn't interfere with work days that individuals might be commuting. And so 10 to 4 was a proposed time, and Saturday was the intended date, and it falls within the 90 to 105-day timeframe.
Any other? Let me just say that, again, this sets us down the path of the process that has to take place, okay? This does not commit to anything. This commits us to furthering the process to try to bring this to you, the voters, okay? That's what this does tonight. We want feedback. We want input. We want questions, whether it's for or against. We can only bring the information that you bring to us back to you and make this project nothing but a positive addition to this town and its people. We are acting on what the people have brought to us the last 8 or 9 years. Okay? I hope that clarifies any questions on that end of things. But please, our lines, our emails are always open. You have a concern or a question, a 1 or 2 liner isn't that hard to send us. And we will answer it. And we will have special meetings throughout this process. We know a deadline date, if it gets that far. We've just said it. Okay? I just read it, I should say. We haven't said it yet. All right? I have a motion made and a second. Any other discussion? Hearing no further discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Carried. I'm sorry, I should have asked. Should that have been a
No,
roll?
there's no expenditure of money on that.
Okay. Getting back to the agenda. At this time, we're at another point in the agenda where there are any public comments. Any public comments, questions, you can approach the podium and go ahead and make your comment or ask your question at this time. Seeing nobody approach the podium. Upcoming meetings is next week, April 24th. That will be our regular board meeting. I will make a quick comment. I thank you all for coming tonight. I really do. All right? This is what we need. We need the involvement. All right? We need the involvement, and we want to hear from each and every one of you. All right? Thank you, Mike. I hope some of your questions were answered. Gentlemen sitting with you tonight, Heather. All right? Thank you very much. And with that, again, the meeting next week, 24th, regular. With that, I'd like to make a motion to enter an executive session for purpose of discussing pending litigation. The matter is Whalen versus Town of Dover concerning the access rights to the Dover Stone Church property and the Appellate Division's recent court decision. Do I have a second? I'm sorry? Not to return to the dais. Do I have a second? Motion's been made by myself, seconded by Councilman Holmes, to go in an executive session and not return to the dais to discuss litigation. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? So carried, one absent. Thank you very much, everybody.